Feel free. Thank you. I hope you can hear me. This is a bit weird for me always. Well, thanks very much for the opportunity. Quickly about my company, and then I'll delve into the topic. Data for citizenry. Our mission is to organize social information around the state's information for them to become available and useful for society. That is the expansion of our role that we have been playing for 50 years, which is connected to social policies and the social welfare. And it's an expansion. It's not that recent, actually, but it's here because of the responsibility for safekeeping of all the many bases I'm about to mention. Our operations start and are centralized on more than $1 trillion reais that are paid in benefits for the population. In the last years, we expanded that to 6 business lines. We have 3 data centers in Rio de Janeiro, in Brasilia, and in São Paulo, and offices in 7 different states. And we came to our 50th anniversary last year. Those are the main bases we operate in. What you see in color is the ones in which we work routinely, and the ones in gray are those that we are integrating more recently. So in the integration and operation of all those databases, we see what corresponds to the social data ecosystem, which is part of the national infrastructure of data in the country. Brazil has been assembling its data structure for decades, and that was part of the elements concerning capacity and capacity management of the state. There are just a few countries that are as advanced in that structure, and that creates an extraordinary difference. And on top of those databases, Brazil actually became the one that paid emergency benefits during the pandemic the fastest in the world. We were able to serve last year's disaster in the south of the country with the floods. So we built that throughout decades, and it determines our capacity to react and our capacity to execute, carry out public policies at difficult moments we actually have as a country. This data ecosystem, and here we have the figures, I will not read out all of them, but that's what you see. It's from billions over here, billions over there. We have the elements that create that ecosystem, which is highly complex, and that now allows us to present this case to you. And that's not just pieces of data, of course. We work together with the government and its website, gov.br, and nearly 95% of the data traffic and the app traffic regarding the federal government actually happens in those 3 apps: DataPrep, My INSS, the sole registration process, and the CTPS, the digital CPS. And that process corresponds to 95% of the transactions that happen after the GovBR started joining in. Now, let's focus on the work regarding the loan credit. And I would like to highlight some of the elements that we structured in order for us to offer that product. And here we have the divisions. Some of the bases that are by DataPrep, but which are not used directly by the program. But also they influence, structure, and reinforce bases which are used. The bases that are operated by DataPrep directly at the workers' credit, and also the basis from our partners. We entered into a partnership with Caixa Econômica, the bank in Brazil, which takes care of the social credits, and we were working with the e-social lines. That integration allowed us, together with the offer of workers' data, that allowed that project actually to come forth and for us to offer that product that started on March 21st of this year. Well, the program, Credit for Employees or Workers, is one of the first offers in in the structuring of the national credit infrastructure in order to offer to society the capacity to have accumulated data or amassed by the Brazilian state in order to leverage financial transactions and also the society's capacity to move forwards with its purposes. We have structured bases that were amassed by other finalities, for example, legal work or the requirements of the FGTS or also the Social Security tax collection. And all that has to do with the formal employees' payroll is collected, structured, qualified, and then again offered to that same employee and to the financial industry in order to qualify credit.
O objetivo, ampliar o alcance de 4 milhões de trabalhadores para 45 milhões potenciais clientes desse crédito. Utilizar o fluxo e o processo do FGTS digital e social to offer these information,
allowing the migration of the personal credit to the consignated credit, allowing for over 25 million workers that were not having access to that they could have access, and thus inducing a fall in the index curves.
A carteira de trabalho, CTPS digital,
interest curves. This is the marketplace of credit for this worker, amplifying the competition and influencing in the interest rates. It's a competitional model. You ask for credit offers, you receive these offers within 24 hours, and there is a consultation of these different offers for you to be able to make your decision within your product base or within the system of the institutions themselves. So with this, we were able to guarantee the flow of the digital FGTS, incorporating with the standard payroll, and that's exactly where we stand today. The expectation is that this will reduce the risk of the operation. This has been proved by the lowering of the interest rates that correspond to the previous process, which was CDC mainly, and the wide range of possibilities for the financial market to benefit from this marketplace, thus amplifying competition. The cycle works in this manner. The worker solicits from their own, they simulate and signal to if they want or not to receive proposals within their portfolio, and they receive this request and they have 24 hours to answer. And the worker gives consentment or agrees that their data will go and legitimize their individual requests. They can also begin the same process directly within the system of the signatory institutions, be them physical, digital, or whatever. Then they receive the proposition, the proposal, and they have 24 hours to begin, and they can choose this channel and the proposal that they prefer and advance for a credit or a contract. This contract is done within the environment of the institution. They need to have biometry. They have a safe home banking digital footprint or signature. Then the components of security are met, and after the signing of the contract, us from DataPrev, we receive this contract for then the registration of the documentation, and it goes for the social process so they can join the cycle of their payroll of their employer.
Só alguns detalhes. Quem não é elegível?
Who is not eligible? Workers who don't have an available margin. We're talking about a law where the margin of 35% was defined. Those who have that already under contract is not eligible for further contract. The workers for who want to make the portability or to refinance their debt, and workers with the personal credit which is active, the CDC that I mentioned, which also can refinance or ask for the portability, working or looking for lower interest rates. The operation within the contract. The contract arrives to us. It generates it is notified. It is registered and available in the MTI portal and also through API and web service. The company receives this information, it discounts from their payroll, and this is duplicated in the social website, and then the employer will discount this value and will register this as an additional information of FGTS. Then it is paid alongside the e-social monthly payroll, who discounted that value from the salary. So this is appropriated by the Caixa Econômica institution. The FGTS goes to the individual account of the worker, and the part of the banks is then paid to the appropriate bank or institution, thus validating this process, and the information are then updated in the database, giving more transparency for all of the stakeholders, and this money is then paid to the proper institution. This is the process which is very robust and as healthy as the payment of taxes. It's exactly the FGTS process and the Social Security taxes as well. Then where are we going with this? The next evolution. There's an MP which is will turn into law. That's what we expect. The update of the norms and the framework, if the Congress allows this, the evolution of this process so it can be more and more transparent, lowering the risk of the inherent risk of the process. There's a new process where we will see a very significant impact in the credit system. So we have a previous treatment of the legacy and a monitoring inclusion of information and flow to support the reduction of risks and support the improvement of the numbers of the taxes to evolve and to ensure that the program is really attaining or meeting its purpose. There are the guarantees, the integration with PASEN, the security evolution, and the monitoring of such process. The impacts of this program, we have seen a significant improvement for the workers. It's an offer of a marketplace who is for the first time including small members of society like house workers, small companies which did not have agreement with the bank and thus did not have an offer of credit. This amplifies the competition, of course, promotes the migration of larger portfolios. It standardizes and consolidates a simple and accessible credit line with competitive interest rates. The interest rates still need to evolve. This, for the worker, increased its reach, their reach. They can migrate, especially in this first moment of launch, from larger to lower interest rates, a transparency in the execution. Every month you are able to see the discounts through your digital portfolio or your digital pathway, and we update it continuously. In this very small period, we have constant updates because this was a very promising concept which really is so, but it needed almost a real-time adjustment. The evolution of the model, we need to improve the risk analysis precision. We are constantly talking with the banks to improve the risk analysis model. We need to avoid the need to have intermediaries in the access to the data, improving security, establishing a direct channel of communication with the worker, simplifying the interaction model for service offers with the worker, opportunity to manage and have return on their data, the use of their data. There's a registration that we need to evolve to allow for the personal management of this data and possibly giving a financial return on that, having elements to improve more and more the choice of services and use personalized vision, since we are using data that is telling what is the turnover of that industry, what is the turnover of that company, how long this individual has been working on the same company. All of these elements of individualization that have very strong impact in the risk analysis of the financial institutions. And the big numbers, so you can have an idea, it was launched in 21 of March, and until 9 of July we had 192 million of simulation, 8.5 million asked for credit, 6.7 million received at least a proposal. It has surpassed 14 billion reais, which have been loaned, 5.5 thousand reais, that's the average. The average of installments is 18. Here we can see the listing of these companies. We brought just the top. There's a large disparity if you can take a look at the average rate column. You can see differences between volumes and significant elements for us to evaluate risk, and the evolution of the interest rate, which is presenting a constant downfall, but still extremely slow. If you compare with the CDC rates, it's still very far from what the government expects, and the next slide will show why. Why another very consolidated product with over 16 years has a lower interest rates, completely different from our product. Of course, this product has a lower risk as the discount is done directly through one single operator, but it doesn't justify from a government standpoint such a large disparity between the rates. So the expectation is there's a gradual approximation of these numbers. Still, it's in the lower ever rates, and this has a very significant impact for these over 2.4 million contracts which I have mentioned. Basically, this was it. I still have a few minutes if anybody wants to ask something or comment. I think there's somebody with a mic that can help us out. That's what I was told. There she is with a mic. If anyone wants to ask anything or comment on my talk, please feel free to do so. I know that a presentation with a large amount of numbers doesn't generate a lot of questions. Oh yeah, there's a question over there. Please. We understand that part of the process still has manual execution to be able to identify and discount. How do you see this capacity or the lack thereof executing or passing this on? Okay, so there are two different aspects here. The company is or has to do that. It's obliged to do so. They have to do so. If they discount, and that's actually a crime. This is very serious. It's not really an administrative issue. And I repeat, the flow is the same as the tax collection process. For a couple hundred years, we have known how to do that. It works. But I think your point goes to this, is how the system can improve the life of big companies.
Trabalhista que eu mencionei, já tem processo de baixar isso.
We have a process of automating that within our RPs, your payroll processes, and this is quite simple and structured and known. The great challenge here is, just as the social was introduced, is to have everybody to comply to these obligations. When we talk about small companies, small entrepreneurs, you have a way or time until they get used to and they get to understand this obligation, and we are working a lot on that. The signature is pretty straightforward, but the comprehension of the process itself, that's the real challenge we are facing right now. We have a lot of disposition to help. There are evolutions that are predicted just as any other systems, they evolve a long time. This is what we're doing. As all novelties, there is a time for people to get used to the new technology, but what's important, and the banks understand that clearly, is that the obligation is there. This was defined by law. The employer is obliged to do so, forced to do so. If they don't do that, he is responsible actually for this process. Anything else, please? President Assunção, 2 points that you commented on. One is about reducing intermediaries, improving security. What does that mean? Learned lessons. What does that mean? And also you talked about, you said that there will be a management of data, personal management, and a potential return, financial return. These two things are very simple to answer. The first part, any crisis, and we are facing an important one, teaches a lot and we do learn. In a specific case, this is not what has a relationship to your question. This is what I described. As you authorize directly the use of your data and the transfer of this information for a financial institution, you are authorizing directly, and these are known data, what you are allowing them to know. This is, in this sense, there's an increase in security that was predicted, or this was what we expected, and it anticipates the crisis in several months. On your other point, or to your other point, the data of these individuals, and I'm not talking about the personal data, I'm not talking about their registration number or their salary, their relationship to the company. No, I'm simply saying that they had a loan. This is a data. This is a piece of information, and this data that they took a loan with such and such bank may be of interest to the market in the future. So setting up a technology that allows this individual to authorize the interest directly by the market, this is something we are exploring. This isn't precisely open finance. Open finance refers to the first part of your question, the fact that I authorize the sending of my data to a financial institution. This is what open finance is all about. What I'm saying is different. Let's say I have a contract of such amount with such and such institution. If this is put together with thousands of contacts with people who are actively interested in making this data available, this may have a financial interest. I don't know if it's true. We will not do that. We will not sell or structure this. What we are doing is we are studying and experimenting on technologies which may allow for that to happen if this exists, if this demand exists in the future. There's legislation on being designed. Our expectation is for us to have tested technologies which may allow that to happen, not only in the law, but in practice within the operations. We have not started a project. We are not offering any products in the product. We are not opening anybody's data. Nothing of that sort is happening. What we have is an experiment in technology that might allow that in case this will be a thing in the future, and if the market has interest in that. These two things must go hand in hand. We are out of time. There's a red light here blinking. I would like to thank your attention and patience, and I'm at your disposal for a few minutes if anybody wants to chat more. Thank you so much.